Hello and welcome to the Skydog podcast, Horse Love, where I'm going to be talking with a whole variety of people about their love of horses. Come join us.
Take me where your river flows. I want to drive on your open road like the wilderness where we are born singing whoa.
I am Arielle Kebbel. I am an actress, producer, working on director, but very, very, very proud Skydog board member, obviously.
That is so cool. And, I think you're going to have to start adding Wild Horse Advocate to your list of titles because I feel like you are blossoming into one, seriously, before my eyes. And I wanted to talk to you about a lot of things, but see if we can edit that. I want to talk to you about a lot of things, mainly horses, and then some other things.
Our favorite subject.
Our favorite subject. And in fact, let's get right back to how you and I met and connected, and that fateful email that you sent to Skydog through our little contact email and how it brought you here. I think that's a really good place to start.
Okay, love it. So I didn't realize I was so drawn to you all right away on, there's so many horse rescue places online these days and on socials. And for some reason, yours kept popping up and I was drawn to it right away. And so I was watching. And then, the fires happened and just suddenly for whatever, it was just kind of the moment in my life where it was like, okay, I'm done watching. It's time to reach out. I have to help. I have to get to know these people. Like it's time to go to Malibu, And so, but I was also a little, to be honest, I was a little nervous because my gut was like, I have to get to know this place and these people and you. But I also, because as you know, you never know with the horse world, but also just rescues in general, it can be a really scary place. And so I think there was a piece of me that was like, they say never meet your heroes. There's a piece of me that was like a little nervous, like, oh no, what if I go and it's not everything I imagined it to be? So I will admit I had my assistant reach out because I was like, that's a good kind of like starting place, and then, but then, the meeting was on right away. And I remember even just driving up there, I remember there was this moment where I was like, of course this is where it is, because years before I was going through the worst breakup of my life at the time. And I was fortunate enough to rent an Airbnb in Malibu to like decompress. It was for the most amazing price. It was just like this miracle that happened. And it was on the same road that Skydog was on. And wow. I drove. And so not realizing it, I had driven by that all the time. And so as I was driving up, I was like, oh my God, I knew it. Like, and that place that I was living at during the breakup was a dog rescue place. And I remember thinking, I really need to be around rescues. I really feel like that is my calling. There's something here. So cut to meeting you and seeing the facility. And I mean, you being you, because you live and breathe this every second of every day. I was just immediately enamored with not just what you do, but also the wealth of information that you offer, just like, because it's inside of you, it's what you do. And I was also just blown away that as being a horse person growing up around horses, I also realized there's so much I don't know. Like I thought I knew, but there was so much I didn't know. And that was really like the thing that kept me constantly wanting to come back for more, was like, there's so much learning here. And I knew, growing up in the hunter jumper world is very different than the rescue world, especially wild mustangs. So I knew that there was a gap there, but I think I was really shocked and kind of embarrassed with like how much I didn't know was happening beneath our noses with the roundups, with wild horses, with our tax dollars, just so many things. And so I was just basically like I'll follow you. I'll do whatever. And, that was our, and then there was Swayze, and I feel like it just kind of, thank God, grew from there. But it was really like just wanting to learn from you that kept me coming back at first, and then, yeah.
I think that's so cool. And it's funny because I feel like sometimes people will come to Skydog and it's almost like lighting a touch paper, in them, or reawakening this love for horses, and then kind of, just seeing someone become passionate about it, but then take an action, take actions like you started sponsoring Swayze, and you started to like really get so involved in educating yourself. And I just found that a fascinating journey to watch, which I love, because I feel like this whole thing grew out of my passion, becoming a thing, and me doing things and taking giant leaps of faith, and just believing the universe would somehow support this. And it was interesting hearing you talk about, that you'd loved horses from a young age. I'd love to hear more about, like, do you remember where that love began, or how it kind of got started in you, what age you were, and what might have brought that out?
It's so funny because I was actually just filming. I'm documenting my journey with Snow, because she teaches me every day.
Yeah.
And I always say Swayze was my gateway horse, like he was the one that inspired me to just go deeper. But we were just talking about this, especially the connection between specifically young girls and horses.
Yeah.
And, I think honestly, part of the magic is that maybe I'll never know the full answer. That's kind of part of the magic. But the other piece is, like I was saying, my horse was my best friend. And even before I actually was lucky enough to have a horse, I remember just wanting to talk to horses like they were my best friend. And there's something about the way that a horse is so grounded, their energy can absorb you. And not only can it absorb you and support you, but it can also reflect back what you need to hear if you're ready to listen.
Yeah.
And I don't know another animal that can do that and have that kind of magnetic connection than with a horse. And I think as kids, we're so open, as we go through traumas and everything and become adults in this world, we get bogged down with society and rules and trauma and all this stuff. But as a kid, you're still really open. And I think that that's also why there's an extra special connection, because that openness and that freedom allows you and the horse to kind of dance.
Yeah.
And it's a team. And I remember like being like, my horse is my best friend, or like even the horses I was leasing or riding, like I would tell them my secrets more than my friends, and I came out of the womb feeling connected to horses, but I wasn't, I always felt like a fish out of water at the barn, because we didn't come from money. Oftentimes I had to hand the trainer a check from my savings account just to be able to take a lesson. It was like very much like, if I wanted to do this, I had to put in the work. Mm-hmm. And I started riding when I was 5. But I remember like, even around all these kind of rich girls, even though I love being at the barn, I always wanted to fit in, and I actually would have like a lot of anxiety around them. And I even developed kind of like tics and things because I didn't know how to manage all the feelings. But the second it was just me and the horse, I was in heaven, and so oftentimes I just go in the stall and hang out for hours or talk to the horse, and I think that every girl has a story like that. Yeah. Like, where it feels like the most important moment in their life, or like maybe they love horses more than anyone else on the planet. But then you talk to another horse lover and they're like, no, I love horses more than anyone else on the planet. It's like this thing.
It's so true. And I'm always amazed. Recently, when we took in that horse, Neptune, who lived on Chincoteague Island, and the Chincoteague ponies. And I just mentioned, that one of the very first horse books that I loved and read was Misty of Chincoteague Island, written by Marguerite Henry, who also wrote a book called Mustangs. And I could not believe the amount of people and the comments and the deep, it was like that was the book that had kind of cracked their heart open for horses. And they were still carrying that love, you know, by following Skydog and all of their experience. But I just felt so uplifted by this absolutely incredible bond that suddenly we were sort of all sharing together, you know, that got us through difficult childhoods. Or, you know, I read that to my granddaughter, and then when we finish it, I start again, you know, and just being so wonderstruck in a way by that incredible like love that these young girls had for horses. And I totally identify with the whole thing you were saying about horses providing such a mutual understanding and respect. Like they meet you with that. And I think it's something that's so lacking in our world right now, you know, that no one seems to have a respect for any, and to come to horses and just be around them and be in their energy and, you know, share that connection and just be met with exactly what you're giving them. You know, if you come with love and good intention, that they can absolutely absorb and feel that and reflect it back to you magnified, you know. And it is such an extraordinary place to be. And I know, you know, you feel the same. And I would love, I mean, I don't know how much everyone knows about your incredible story with Snow, but I literally want to jump right into it. And the whole spiritual aspect of like your story with Snow, what you get out of that, go.
I love that you said that, because as you were talking, I was thinking of things Snow does every day that teaches me. Before I do that, I just have to show you, because I said we were just filming, and everyone listening, you have to know this was not planned. We were just filming. My parents sent up a bunch of stuff that I didn't know I still had. It was in storage. And I just put this on the docu that we're filming because I didn't know I had it. This is incredible. Okay, wait, let me zoom in, or let me see how I can. Okay, I'll do the smaller one because it might be easier. This is a book report on Misty of Chincoteague that I did. I swear to God, this was not planned. We were just doing this. And because we were forced to do it the normal way, book report way, but I said to my teacher, I'm only going to do it if I can also do the picture way, because I wanted to show the roundups and what happened. So I used like little Breyer horses and Lego. Trying to see if you can see, but right here it shows like the roundup, and it says it's separated and tagged and taken from her mom.
No.
And it starts at the beginning. So it says like here it says like Misty of Chincoteague, a story in pictures.
I cannot believe it, because I don't even think you and I had this particular conversation. But
so like, here's the boat, here's the horses swimming to shore. It's crazy.
Arielle, that is beyond crazy. Because, you know, it's funny, recently I was thinking, do young girls today have something that awakens that love? And it was so nice for me to see grandmothers or mothers saying, I read this book, my daughter wants me to, you know, read it to her all the time. And I'm like, oh, it's cracking open more hearts and souls of little girls that hopefully that passion will lead them, you know, down a good road, and that they can contribute to this whole story. So that's mind blowing. I'm so excited that you just showed that to me, and that I even brought it up, you know, that I brought up Neptune.
That's why I said this was not planned. I just like have to, yeah. So.
Well, I want you to tell the story of Snow, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy this.
Okay. So after working with Skydog for a few years and being a proud board member, and like I said, learning so much, I just started getting more and more involved at how I could. And I sponsored Swayze, which was so special to me. And he taught me so much, but he also awakened, I think, you know, going back to Misty of Chincoteague, he awakened that piece of me that was like, as much as I thought I knew horses growing up in the hunter jumper world, there's something so different about a wild horse, and just even being around their instincts and just the way that my behavior changed every time I was around Swayze and what I was learning. And because immediately I think anyone who's around like a rescued wild horse is like, whoa, how do I act? You know, like, and you really do have to. I remember one of the first things I learned was like, take a breath and exhale. You know, because it's so important to be grounded when you go around them. And And so I was loving this journey. Never in a million years thought I would adopt my own. Always thought I'd be supporting you however I could. And then I remember last August, I was filming in North Carolina and I was scrolling through, walking to set. And of course, I see your post, 11 wild Mustangs from the ages of 2 to 6 years old, saved a night before slaughter. You and Anne had partnered and you had helped like made it happen. And they were headed to quarantine, but since they're so young, they're going to need, if anyone can adopt them. And I just stopped dead in my tracks. And I was like, what? But it was different than any other post because I'm always like, seeing your posts and loving them. But this one was different. Like I immediately was like, is this my time? Am I going to adopt a wild horse? I'm like, what am I going to do with a wild horse? I don't know how to train a wild horse. Where am I going to put it? What am I going to do? This is crazy. You're in North Carolina filming. You're not even in New York, Cut to, you put us in, group text or email with Anne. Anne being Anne sent me all the pictures right away. And then I remember I really loved Rapunzel.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being really drawn to her. I still love her.
Yeah.
But then I remember thinking, I had this dream one night. I can't remember if I told you this. And I had a dream that there was another horse that felt more grounded. And for me, being like a newbie into this, I knew that was important because I can't just every wild horse is different with their behavior. And, I can't just take on a stallion right away. So I was like, I feel like there's another horse. And then I almost felt embarrassed to ask Anne because I was like, well, they've posted about them. Like, what am I going to say to her? I'm going to feel like a dum-dum, Yeah. And then I just was like, screw it. Just ask. You need to know because you can't let go of this feeling. And it turned, she wrote back right away, something like, I've sent you everything, but here it is again, which I figured she would send because she had sent me everything. But what I realized was on Instagram, they only allowed 10 pictures. And on Facebook, there's 11. I'm not ever on Facebook. So she was assuming I had seen Snow and I hadn't. And when I saw the email, I was like, I remember my heart was pounding and I was scrolling. I was like, okay, there's Rapunzel, there's Ariel, there's, I remember all the horses. They were all Disney names, which I love. And then one of the last ones was Snow. And I remember looking at her and I was like, there she is. And it was crazy because she looks
crazy.
Crazy. It was crazy because she looks like she could be sisters with Rapunzel. But if you look at the two pictures side by side, you can kind of feel Rapunzel's energy. She's a little more wild. Yeah. And Snow just had this it was like this earthy energy about her where I was like, I can handle her. It's not going to be overwhelming at first, Huh. And so I went up to meet them. And at the time, you couldn't even touch them. So I was terrified. I'm like, I'm going to adopt a horse that I've never touched, never spent time with, have no idea if I'm going to have a connection to. Yeah. Was worried about finances. It wasn't something that was planned. We're coming out of COVID. Now we're in a strike. It's like my business is very fickle and I'm going to take on this horse, which is a lot of financial responsibility. And I just knew I had to do it. And then I remember calling you and I remember I was my heart was beaming. I was crying and we were talking. I just remember that car ride home was so special. And now I've had her almost a year and she's my best friend. I mean, I learn from her every day. We have not started attempting, the training of riding yet. But she's totally her ground manners are amazing. I hand walk her on the trails because my goal is because there's trails all around here. So I've started hand walking her to get her used to it. She's amazing with kids, which blows my mind. Her whole, I mean, I'm safe with how we do it, but her entire demeanor changes. The way she takes a cookie from them is different than the way she takes a cookie from me. She lets them groom her. I mean, she follows me around like a dog. I mean, it's just a completely different horse than when I first got her. And anytime I see her, when she hears me pull up, she comes galloping down the hill to greet me. Every time that happens, my heart explodes. I get tears in my eyes. I mean, the number of times I've texted you, like, I cannot tell you the gratitude, because whether I'm having a shitty day, an amazing day, you know, whether I'm worried about finances or my next job or some stressful shit, like none of it matters when I see her running down the mountain and I see this magnificent animal that I know is a day away from slaughter. Like, there's just no words. There's just no words. Nothing else matters. I'm obsessed with her. I send text to you that I love you. You know, and that's that. I'm like, everything's okay. Life is fine. And even like, you know, right now she accidentally stepped on me, you know, so I'm in a boot. But you know, but that's the thing about like horsewomen, like it's never their fault.
No.
Like I was trotting her on the trail. She got a little too hot. I stopped her. She spun. She stepped on my foot. That was my fault, you know, learning lessons. So it's like, even as well-mannered as she is, it's still dangerous and all that stuff. But that's what's exciting about it, you know?
And that's the incredible thing. It's funny because I've talked to Rachel and talked to Jamie, who are both on our board, and just having these same conversations with them where they just light up. You know, Jamie went through an experience. She was 30 before she started getting into Mustangs and then adopting 2 wild ones. And what I absolutely love about it is like, man, I'm so proud to know these women that don't just like get a little spark lit and a passion. They then go and literally take this action based on that passion, which I think is like the giantest leap, because, you know, who are we to think we can do this, you know? And I was very much the same when I started Skydog. I was like terrified going, you know, like, okay, I'll try and learn all I can. But at the end of the day, it just comes down into taking that giant leap into something that you feel so passionate and so strong about it and making it work, you know, just meeting each little problem head on and problem solving and getting to know the horses and all of that you've done so amazingly with Snow and before that with Swayze. And I have to say, your relationship with Swayze was so beautiful to watch. I mean, I think I have some of the most beautiful pictures ever taken of you guys interacting and just being with each other, and the way he would change when he saw you, because he was a pretty aloof, grumpy, not particularly, you know, touchy-feely. And then there was you, and it was the craziest, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I'm so grateful to him for lighting that spark in you. And
I have to show you, he's all over my house. He's there.
Oh. Oh my
And he's
God.
like, when you come in the entrance, he's here. He's there. See, he's everywhere. I have a picture, you know, the picture that Skydog sent to say thank you for sponsoring when he passed away. That's by my bed. So he's like my constant reminder of all of this. And I just love him.
remember that beautiful story that you told about the night you came in and spoke to his picture, and it was the night before he passed away. Because I know that when I sent you a message the next day, shortly after he passed, I remember sending that to you, and I said, can we speak? And you said, is it Swayze? And it was weird because it wouldn't necessarily have been, and there wasn't any reason to think it was, but I think that's just testament to the bond that you guys shared, you know, and having been through that myself many times with horses that were so special to me, you know, I always felt like Swayze was yours. So I didn't have maybe as deep a connection, you know, he was definitely one of my favorite horses, but it was just a beautiful thing to see, and how it changed your life in such a big way. And, you know, I was so proud to ask you to be on the board because we shared that common sort of heart for horses and that love that just comes from a place of not wanting anything for ourselves out of it, but just being, you know, a purely altruistic, you know, decision to try and do everything that we could using our skills and talents to help wild horses. And I think that you have been such an incredible voice for them and brought so much to the table, you know, always reposting our fundraisers and, you know, going out of your way to take time to do things. And I remember you went and like set up a little stall somewhere, you know, where you sat about flyers about Skydog. Like what the fuck? Like seriously, like the women that I've met doing this, be it the volunteers, the donors, our board members. It has been such an honor and a privilege to be the steward of this happy ship, with so many people united in their love. And I think you talk so beautifully about the spiritual aspects of the horses and what they bring to you. And I don't know if you can talk to that a little bit. And because I've really felt like when I'm with a horse, and I feel like you're the same with Snow, it's one place in my life where I can practice mindfulness and being present and just in the moment and having that connection. And it's like everything else goes away, in those moments that I share with the horses, and I think that you have that same sort of spiritual connection to Snow, from the story to now. So I don't know if there are things that you can say about how that makes you feel or what it's taught you even.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I definitely have always felt this spiritual connection with each of the horses. But again, with Swayze and now Snow being like my first, one that I've adopted and am building this new kind of relationship with. There's so much I'm learning from, like, every horse is magical, but the instincts that a wild horse has, that is something that I feel like every day is constantly reteaching me and reframing me. Because again, like I said, growing up in the horse world, it's like, oh yeah, I know horses. I've been doing it since I was 5. But I knew a certain kind of horse. And, those horses, sometimes like they're afraid of their own shadow, it's like, and wild horses, just given their nature, the behavior is so different. Watching, like even just watching her when I take her around the barn, the other horses' reactions, even the gelding's reactions, the other mare's reactions, like she brings out primal in other horses around her that I know I see the other horses, they don't react that way. And it's the way that she protects me. She's always putting herself in between me and the other horses, me and other people, and the way, like I said, that she is with kids, even the way her behavior is with me. It's like some days I teach her a lesson in patience, some days, and building trust. And some days she really teaches me a lesson in patience. And I think that there's something that's forcing me, because her instincts are just so spot on no matter what, it forces me, I think, to constantly be a better human around her because I can't fake it. And I think somewhere along the way with the other horses, you kind of can after a while. And she knows, like, if I show up and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not grounded, but she'll help get me grounded, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
She'll start like yawning right away. And it's like, I can tell that she's taking on my energy and disposing of it. And like her reaction to my energy, that's all I need to see. I'm like, oh, damn, she knows, So it's like, there's no hiding. And so then it's my responsibility to like sit and get grounded or do whatever I have to do, because I can't just rush into her. I can't just be like, fuck it, she won't notice, because once she yawns and is helping me that way, that kind of exchange, because like when we yawn, it's a release of energy, right? So when she's yawning, she's 100% releasing my energy. She was not yawning before I got there. And it's constant, one right after the other. It's like, and then it's like, and then I know if I don't change my energy, then she kind of will turn her butt to me. Like she won't come near me. And I know the difference because when I'm grounded, she'll come right up to me and give me head rubs, which is like huge, because there was a time where she wouldn't even let me touch her head. And now she rubs me up and down like a dog. And so there's this, not just an energy exchange where I'm constantly learning, but it's also like patience. Like I said, like there was a time where if they weren't walking or something, I was trained, like, give them a little tap on the butt. And now it's like, no, that closes her off and makes it worse. Like give her a pet on the neck, let her know she's safe, let her know she can take the time she needs. And then magically she starts walking again. And then what did I learn? Oh, by me building trust and safety, she feels safe enough. And then I get what I want, which is she's walking and we're both happy, and it's like, that constant reframe of the way I was taught in society to train versus this. I haven't picked up a book. Like, it's literally just every day she's teaching me, I'm listening, and I just feel what to do. And then when you take that knowledge and learning and apply it to the world, like if I'm out or whatever, and I'm suddenly just feeling what to do versus being heady about it and everything, it's suddenly made me deeper and kind of more intuitive in my everyday life because of the unspoken communication I'm learning and allowing at the barn with her, you know? And it really is powerful. Like, there's times since then that she has 100% spoken to me in her dreams, or in my dreams.
Yeah.
And like, there was one time during winter, I had a dream. I woke up in a sweat and I was like, she's not getting enough water. And I went the next day, they were already fixing it, but the water had frozen overnight. So she wasn't actually able to drink. And I just was like, holy shit, I'm not crazy. Because there was a piece of me that was like, maybe I just had a dream and I was worried, but it actually was real. You know, and so speaking to the spiritual side, again, it's like the communication knows no boundaries. You know, even if I'm not at the barn, she'll speak to me in my dreams. And I had that proof that it was real, you know, and I think that's all I need to hold on to, of like, whatever this is, it's not always describable, but it is real.
I so love all of that. And, you know, me and Janelle do that. I'll sometimes say something the next day and it's almost like I'm apologizing, like I had this feeling or this or that, and how many times it's come true. And I think to begin with, but she'll do it too, you know, and it's extraordinary. And the whole reason I started Skydog was my first Mustang buddy. You know, I would go for these rides with him and he would stop and he'd sigh and he'd look out at the kind of expense of, you know, we were in the Hollywood Hills, so it kind of looked like we were in this open, beautiful country. And I would feel him saying, like, find my family, help my family. I have no idea what that was, but it led me to, you know, put an emphasis onto finding family at Skydog and eventually finding his sister 17 years after they were rounded up, which is so beyond. I feel like people call them God shots, but I always feel like they're little kind of just markers telling me I'm on the right path, but the horses are leading, you know, and they're kind of like, I've done therapy where they use biofeedback machines. And I'm like, oh, you mean like a horse, except horses. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what you were talking about. You know, it's like they'll hold a mirror up to you, or, you know, they are biofeedback machines in a way. And I think it's from them being prey animals and having this complicated gut system where they had to be able to, you know, if they could feel a mountain lion 2 mountain ranges away staring at the back of their neck, they would turn and look right at it. You know, there's this whole book of science, the sense of being stared at. And I think that sense in them developed so much that they could feel exactly, I mean, our energy, you know, when we approach them in an energy. And I used to say that to my husband, because he would go down there all big and in ego and male and kind of, you know, and I'd be like, you can't come down here like that. Like, you can't. You got to leave that up there and come in like softly and with calmness and I think, you know, during the day, and I've said this before about when I get all stressed out and in my head and I'm anxious and overwhelmed, I just have to get up and go walk around. And whether it's me sitting down on the ground and petting on Boots's face or whatever, the most crazy thing happens. You know, it's the
Waldo, he loves you so much. He loves you so much. It's just, oh my God.
It is the most extraordinary thing. And I really think, you know, Waldo is one of those kind of soul connections. And even when I'm up in Malibu, up in Oregon, when I'm not in Malibu, and he's up there now, and I might go into another pen, but he hears my voice. He comes running with his little legs, like, and he's like, oh, like this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, I have fallen back in love with donkeys so many times, but he is definitely my gateway donkey in terms of like the overwhelming love I have in my heart for that donkey and where he could have ended up, you know. And so, I'm sure that's very similar to what you have with Snow. And it's just, I love hearing you talk about it.
Thank you. I know I love seeing videos of you and Waldo. I was going to ask you, because you were talking about that book. What's it called? The Sight of Being Seen, or what's it called?
A sense of being stared at. A sense of being stared at. I think that's what it's called. I haven't read it for a long time, but it is so fascinating.
I want to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was going to ask you, because you brought that up. Another thing I read was, is it true that a horse can feel your heartbeat from or because all the horses in the herd's heartbeats sync up?
It is a fascinating, it's in a study by HeartMath, and they basically measured the electromagnetic field of a horse, which is easily 6 times more powerful than our electromagnetic field. And what they do, if they're close to you, they sync their heart to you and slow it down to what theirs is, because it's scientifically proven. And I actually saw someone on Instagram doing a reels where they had some kind of little machine where they could measure the energy, and they would touch a tree and it would give a certain amount of energy, but then a horse, it would give this enormous amount of energy. And just, it was fascinating to see. And I was like, I need one of those machines. I want to go around like checking everyone who has the biggest electromagnetic field. But yeah, I think there is so much science behind what we intuitively are feeling and experiencing that backs that up. We've got a minute left.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask you another question, because I thought it was so sweet, but I saw you get emotional talking about Swayze and the night that he passed and just the deep connection. And I wanted to ask you, because what you do and what people see is so like incredible and inspiring, and kind of the bright side of something that also has a very dark side. And a piece of the dark side is that as much as you do rescue, the other side of it is like they all can't make it, unfortunately. And I know that you've been through so many and you're connected to each and every one like they're your babies. And so I just wanted, because I know that, what you do, as incredible as it is, it's also really hard. It's hard on your mind and your heart and your body. And I just was wondering how do you get through these losses, and how do you kind of, when you go through a loss, how do you wake up the next day and kind of get through it and keep going, because you do so much every single day.
We go through the most enormous highs and then the most crushing lows. And it's been something that, I'm not sure if Janelle and I ever sat down and had a conversation about what our protocols were, but I definitely know we've gone through experience where possibly the vet has suggested euthanasia, and Janelle and I, knowing that horse as well as we have day in and day out, we have to some point disagreed and continued on with their treatment to incredible results, and that is not in any way to say that the vet wasn't right. I understand when it is suggested, and I also understand how absolutely blessed and lucky we are to be supported and funded enough to be able to treat a lot of these animals that another rescue would automatically go to euthanasia, because the treatment is so expensive. And that has never, ever at any point in our decision for whether we euthanize a horse or let them go, it's never factored in that it's going to be this amount of money, and we are so lucky. I know other rescues don't have that gift. And that's been a wonderful thing, and even recently when Dakota, we were talking about Dakota is actually having to have a kidney removed for this ongoing issue she's had. And we got an email from a donor saying, I'd like to cover all her medical bills. And that was incredible. But I think the one protocol that Janelle and I both felt from the heart, and it happened naturally, is that we have made it an incredibly important part of that process to wherever we can be with the horse when they pass away. And I can't tell you how many horses I've been with when they left this world. And if they're at the vet and that's recommended, we will drive there. And I just think it's the one gift that we can give them, you know. And I remember when I had Buddy at this stable, there was this lady who she had this horse and he really couldn't even stand up anymore. And he was just laying in his stall all day and hobbled around the courtyard about once a day when she would get him out. And I was thinking that really isn't any quality of life. But then when she would talk about him, she was like, but Claire, you didn't see him. You didn't see him. You know, she'd had him 35 years and she just couldn't go through with that because she didn't want to feel the sadness. So we discuss their quality of life if they're suffering, because horses are such stoic animals. They very rarely tell you, especially wild horses. So there is a certain amount of having to make that decision. And it's not an easy one to make. You know, I don't want to play God and decide this is the day that, you know, they're going to leave us on. But a vet has always said to me, go on a good day, you know. And I think honestly, when I look back at some of the horses that we have let pass away, the only regrets I've ever had is that I've looked back and thought I should have done that 6 months earlier. You know, that was unnecessary to put them through that. So that's informed us a lot. And, you know, it's funny that not funny, but it's interesting how each death has been different. You know, it feels different. And particularly, I think we went through a really lucky long period where if we did lose a horse, it was a horse maybe that I didn't have a huge bond with, or, you know, it was unmistakably the right thing to do. They were older, or, you know, I remember Reese, he had EPM and it went on for a while and he almost couldn't even chew anymore. His jaw and muscles had kind of seized up. And I think my first taste of the most tremendous grief was losing Rain, and then Renegade sort of 2 months later, because they were horses that I had just allowed into my heart in such a massive way. And it was very obvious through social media. They were two horses I loved more than any others. And I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but there was just something
we all do.
them. Yeah. There was just something about them. And I think with Renegade, I was with him when he took his last breaths, and I was grateful for that he knew love and that he died free somewhat, because I know how traumatic it had been for him living in a human's world and constant training and attempts at training. So I was grateful for that, but I literally, to deal with it, had to change my belief about what death was, which sounds weird. I had to come up with a belief system that made it tolerable and bearable. And it was this whole thing that happened with Renegade about a golden eagle that appeared above Sheep's Rock, you know, from almost the moment he died. And I literally could see it as clear as anything, that this was a horse who wanted to be free so badly. We had brought his family to safety, and he was like, no, there are still fences. I want to be freer than this. And that he just transitioned into another dimension, which they talk about so much in mythology and ancient practices, that horses are the one animal that can cross easily between dimensions, you know, change into different forms. And I just decided that was what I was going to believe, that he went from being a horse to being an eagle, that he still visits his family, that he is still watching over us and still taking care of us. And that helped, you know. And if that sounds like a crazy belief to anyone else, it was born out of the fact that I had to find a way to make this loss, you know, bearable, because it killed me. You know, both of them did, just killed me. And I almost was like, I can't love these horses anymore if this is how painful it's going to be to lose them, because I was just a wreck. And I think since then, it certainly hasn't been that deaths have been any easier. It's never easy to lose them. But I have this comforting feeling that they're going to a better place, you know, that they're out of the confines of those worn out bodies sometimes, you know, that even when we have rescued a horse from a kill pen in a terrible way and they have passed away in quarantine, which a very old horse that we rescued recently, I never met her, But when she got to quarantine, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, she just lay down under a tree and left. And the quarantine lady was like, Claire, she was at peace now. She didn't want to die at a kill pen with other horses and, all of that was going on. She found peace under that tree and she could just leave, peacefully, and knew that she was in a better place. But it always breaks my heart, those ones, because I feel like they're so close to a new life. And if they could only get here and we could treat them, we would be able to save them. But I definitely have been taught that's not the way it is. I'm not God, and I can't make these horses recover every time. And for a while I was like, we can do anything. We'd had cases like Dream and cases that were so impossible to imagine these horses could recover, and they did. So I thought, if they get here, we can save them and they're going to live a long life. But I think when they get to us, whether it's for 1 week or 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, maybe some of these foals, that's something. When they do leave, they know they're leaving loved. They've known love. They know compassion and kindness and care, and that all people aren't bad, and that cruelty, might have been a part of their story, but it isn't in their ending. So that makes me really happy. But it is good that you asked that question, because it is something that is as much a part of our work as saving them, is knowing when to let them go, and to know when we're being selfish, that it's just that I don't want to feel that pain. I'm not ready to go through it. And I want them to stay just a bit longer. And knowing that, even though I don't want that, they're tired and they're ready. Recently Marley left us, and I had just come down from Oregon, and I arrived here that morning, and Natalie said, Marley didn't finish it. He didn't eat his food this morning. And I don't know, just from her saying that, I just knew, because I knew Marley, and I went up there, and now he had laid down, and I sat down next to him, and I just looked in his eyes. And Roberto, who works here, another time that Marley was having a bad episode, he was like, please, I'll look after him. I'll do everything for him. Please don't let him go. But this time Roberto was like, it's time, just because just the look in his eyes, he was tired and he wanted to go. And it was the gift that we could give him. And, but I never take it lightly. We have also had horses pass away just under a tree, in the night. And Reed, who loved his mare Vegas, she was laying down and he was standing over her, just like a soldier, like, until she got taken away. He just stood there with her, and he totally understood she'd gone, but he wanted to be with her, until the end. And then, and then now he has a whole new life, because we bought him several different mares by his gate, and most of them he was like, nope. And then we brought him Blue, and he was like, yes. And he ran after her, and, and he's still with her. And, he has to share a little bit with Boomer, who likes to flirt with her over the fence. And
I saw that video posted. That was so cute. Oh my God.
And I think it almost has given Reed a whole new lease on life, because he likes playing bitey face with Boomer and going, don't you look at my mare? And
he has a new purpose.
Yes, he does. He has to fight for his mare and keep her safe from Boomer. And seeing all of that, you kind of and I have this saying, and on we go, and that came out of the deaths, because how do you move on from that? You tell everyone that we've lost a beloved member of our herd, and everyone is sad. They get more comments than any other posts, but it's hard the next morning to then be on video.
It took me weeks to Swayze.
Yeah. And so it's hard to just the next day be on social media and go, hi, this is, and On We Go has become such a part of, because we don't have a choice. We have to go on. We have almost 300 other equines to take care of. We don't get to kind of, fall apart and spend a week in bed and not be able to give this our whole heart. But, at night, I think about them, and I have special things that remind me of them. And I think it was a really beautiful thing, because we have a big sheet of all the horses we have with their names, and I would delete them off the sheet because somehow it would make me sad seeing their names. And then I was like, now I turn them into pink. They're pink. And it's just a really small thing, but we have an in memoriam page and we move them instead of just deleting their picture as if they were never here. We move it over to the in memoriam page and tell their story because we don't ever want to forget them. And it is a part of what we do. And we don't hide, you know, and it's funny, there was this woman who ran another sanctuary that I knew when we started, and she said, oh, you're making a terrible mistake naming all these horses. You're going to have to tell everyone every time a horse dies. And I was taken aback because I was like, well, yeah, that's as much a part
that's the point.
you know, and I found it quite shocking because I know there are rescues that just, you know, they never tell people and they euthanize a lot of the horses that they take. But we are totally transparent in that. And we want to celebrate the life they had and tell people that they are not with us anymore. You know, it's not something to hide. And I want to honor all of them by having a name and telling their story over and over again. And a part of their story is their transitioning to another thing or being. So thank you for asking that question. It really meant a lot to me. And I'm sorry to everyone who might be a little confused because we look different, because the Zoom call cut us off in the middle of that answer. So we just redid it. And I might look different and Arielle's wearing something different, but that was what happened to explain that. But,
and we go on, right?
And on we go. Exactly. What can you do?
On we go.
And on we go.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much for being such a huge part of Skydog and for your support and kindness and uplifting me when I'm having a bad day. And I hope I do the same for you, you know, and it's wonderful to have you.
Is how I like to start and end my day. And I know I'm not the only one who says that. I think almost everyone says that. So I'm really grateful you could share that. Is, you know, I think it's important for people to hear what you go through, not just the rescue, but the entire process, which can lead to death. And you said something when he said, you know, it's important they're not alone. And one of my favorite psychic mediums, Laura Jackson, shout out, hi. She talks about when a spirit is not alone when they transition. And so I just wanted to say that, like, it's just amazing what you do for these horses on a daily basis, but also being willing to be with them when they transition, because I do think that the soul knows that and remembers that. And I think anyone who's lost an animal or a loved one, you know, feels that and can appreciate that. Yeah. And she also has this great book called, I'm not plugging her, but when you were talking, I was thinking of her because I was saying, oh, when you're talking about the eagle and the signs, she has this great book called Signs, and it's all about how our loved ones communicate with us all the time. And I just feel like these animals are so grateful for you, Claire, because of what you do when they're alive, but also when they pass on. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone listening and supporting, because I am just so proud to do my part. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Arielle. Hopefully we'll see you on the West Coast soon. I would love that. Come visit soon. Love you lots.
Love you. Bye.
I'll see you soon. Bye, lovely.